President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us.
Canadian Revolution, the maple syrup comeback. This is it. Mark Carney, Liberal, an almost inconceivable turnaround in Canadian politics. The Liberals were like 25 points behind. Pierre Poilievre, conservative, pugnacious dude, peculiarly took the move of saying that he was anti-Trump, I suppose, because Canada has a curious relationship with the United States of America, and they can't just accept, can they, that 51st state rhetoric that Trump was playing. Let's have a look at the surprising victory of Mark Carney and discuss together what it means for the world. Is this a liberal comeback? Let's get into it.
As I've been warning for months, America wants our land.
This is the victory speech of Mark Carney, your new leader, Canada. Trudeau was unpopular, somewhat ridiculous, a little too Castro, a little too haircut, a little too black-faced. He's yesterday's man. He's gone and will soon be forgotten. What does Mark Carney represent? Let's pay close attention to this victory speech. These are moments where one can take the temperature of a political figure. They're moments of victory and their moments of departure. Often when you see a departing politician give their departure speech, it's like they've been unplugged from the Matrix and they're suddenly like, it was crazy in there. And I think, wow, where was this guy? Where was this person? I can rely on this person. I can trust them. But this is Mark Carney on the way in. Let's pay close attention.
Our resources, our water, our country. Never. But these are not idle threats. President Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us.
It's standard political practice to emphasize an external threat in order to galvanize and mobilize a vote. Whether you're Adolf Hitler galvanizing the German people against the Jews and the various other groups that were penalized and executed under Nazism, or the common and popular rhetoric around migrants these days, it is very easy to, or effective to galvanize a voter base by emphasizing an external threat. Remember, we've lived through the era of the Cold War, Islamic terrorism, and you can question and evaluate the legitimacy of each of those threats yourself. For example, now we are looking at a tripolar geopolitical world where China, Russia, and the United States of America vie for global supremacy. Beyond that, it has seemed to me for some time that there are sets of imperialist and bureaucratic powers that were using neoliberal and progressive politics to assert control over sets of nations that were ultimately coordinated by bureaucracies like the WHO, WEF, World Bank, etc., to present you a kind of progressive vision of the world that led to, in the reckoning and rhetoric of Klaus Schwab, as owning nothing and being happy. The rise of nationalism and populism is a prophylactic and bulwark against that, but it comes, of course, with its own problems. It comes with its othering of outside groups. Sometimes it comes with reductivism when it comes to complex social issues, and even, as we're seeing in the United States right now, free speech issues. But liberalism, I believe we identified together during the pandemic, presented a unique type of threat, because there's nothing more terrifying than when someone is claiming power in order to protect you. We saw in the pandemic era the general trend of give us authority and we will save you. Take your vaccination, we will protect you. Get into your house, wear your mask, stay 6 feet apart and you will be safe. No longer are there barbarians at the gate, there are germs in the air. Once the threat becomes microbial, the measures are limitless. The threats and legislation that can be deployed in order to protect you, if it's the air that you breathe that you need to be afraid of, are almost without scale and without limit. That's why for some time I have been more concerned about socially progressive, inverted commas, liberalism than nativism and populism. The nation served as a barrier against all-pervasive globalism, which I believe was the great threat of our time. And like you, probably, it seemed to me that the pandemic was some kind of dress rehearsal for a global takeover. Even these blackouts in Portugal and Spain, to me, bear the intuitive hallmark of rehearsals and attempts to discern new ways to legitimize authority. The powerful will always legitimize their authority in the terms and language of safety or convenience. No one's going to just tell you we're taking over because we want to. They're going to tell you we're taking over to protect you. That's why I think this is a pretty significant result in Canada. You have to actually say Trump does run the world in terms of his influence. Trump says this, Canada does that. There's no question that Trump's rhetoric around Canada has influenced the outcome of this election. Let me know what you think, though, about that in the comments and chat.
That will never ever happen.
Like, that's sub-Churchill, no? Like, never. You will never take over Canada. Our Mounties and our syrup, our land and our logs will be protected from Trump. Donald Trump and his grisly gang of MAGA racists may crouch at the border, threatening. I feel like Trump's taking the piss when he says, Governor Trudeau and all that. I don't think, hey, I am naive, that Trump is like, right, we're going to take over Canada. That would be so mad and unprecedented. Do you remember all the stuff about Greenland and Panama Canal? I think he just says stuff. I think he's an intuitive guy that operates on the level almost of the unconscious. Like, the art of the deal tells you that Trump is a person that's discerning moment to moment what he thinks he needs to say in order to get what he wants. I mean, we all do that to a degree. But what I'm saying is, although I believe that Trump is the creature of our age, is the president that is created for times such as these, I don't think that Trump seriously intends to militarily or economically take Canada over. But, I don't know much about this stuff. I don't know what the impact of all these tariffs are. I thought that the tariffs might galvanize American industry, might be an isolationist policy in some ways, but might protect and embolden American workers and American towns and American cities. Let's learn about it. Let's get into what Mark Carney's saying.
But we also must recognize the reality that our world has fundamentally changed. I began with humility, but Canadians are ambitious. And now, more than ever, it is a time for ambition. It is a time to be bold, to meet this crisis with overwhelming positive force of a united Canada.
What is the crisis he's referring to? What is the crisis? What's the crisis? What's the crisis? What crisis is Canada in? Do you not imagine for 1 minute that there were strategic meetings around the campaign of Mark Carney where they went, the opportunity here is to galvanize some kind of peculiar fusion of nationalism and liberalism by positing Trump very helpfully as an external bogeyman, or boogeyman in your language, because he's doing the work for us by making all these crazy jokes about, I'm going to take Canada over. You know now, don't you, that politics is not the business of authentic open discourse with the population. It's not just like that guy's gone out there and just making this stuff up off the spot without a teleprompter. He's reading that. He's reading it. Someone else wrote it.
Because we are going to build, baby, build. Throughout our history, there have been turning points when the world's fortunes were in the balance. That was the case at the start of the Second World War.
So he's the guy that used to run the Bank of England. So he's deep in global finance, of course. Obviously, the Bank of England's in the City of London. The City of London is regulated differently. Did you know this? From the rest of England, it's exempted from a bunch of tax laws and other regulations. There's literally weird dragon symbols. I'm not making this up. Every point where you can enter into the City of London, there are weird emblems and dragons. I know this because of the reporting of that marginal, peripheral, shamanic figure, David Icke, who talked about the City of London and how it houses financial power and global power, and that as the British Empire went into decline, the British power no longer was militaristic and explicit, but became implicit, tacit, clandestine and financial. Mark Carney ran the Bank of England. I believe he was photographed with or friends with Epstein. Someone let me know. I mean, if that's true, then I feel like that's worth knowing. We've always believed in empowering voices, no matter how unpopular. Now we're taking the fight to the next level. When major advertisers conspired to pull their dollary dues, even brands like Dirty Dunkin' Donuts, which I think of as being a bit like the Dunkin' Donut of that Tesla guy that wiped his hand on his butt. Remember him, this guy? Dunkin' Donuts is the donut equivalent of that. the free speech hating pigs, claiming that Rumble had a right-wing culture. How dare they? We're excited to offer you Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. You'll find exclusive content from creators like Russell Brand. Hey, I'm him. Dr. Disrespect. That's my actual doctor. Timcast. Yeah, Timpo. The Mug Club. It's more than a subscription. It's a stand for free speech. You're subscribing to freedom. Your voice matters. Join Rumble Premium. For a limited time, you can get $10 off an annual plan using the promo code BRAND. Visit rumble.com/premium, promo code BRAND. Together, we can turn the tide. Whether you join Rumble Premium or simply keep watching, your support helps keep free speech alive. Join Rumble Premium and help keep free speech alive, baby.
Just as it was at the end of the Cold War. And each time, Canada chose to step up, to assert ourselves as a free, sovereign, and ambitious nation, to lead the path of democracy and freedom, and, because we are Canadian, to do so with compassion and generosity. We are once again at one of those hinge moments of history. Our old relationship with the United States, a relationship based on steadily increasing integration, is over. The system of open global trade anchored by the United States, a system that Canada has relied on since the Second World War, a system that, while not perfect, has helped deliver prosperity for a country for decades, is over. These are tragedies, but it's also our new reality. We are over the shock of the American betrayal, but we should never forget the lessons.
But you're going to take us forward.
We have to look out for ourselves, and above all, we have to take care of each other.
Emphatic and empty platitudes. We have to take care of each other. In a sense, we project reality onto the external icons and idols. It is our faith that makes it so. If you believe Mark Carney, we have to take care of each other, compassion, then why would you not believe J.D. Vance saying it or Keir Starmer saying it?
When I sit down with President Trump, it will be to discuss the future economic and security relationship between two sovereign nations. And it will be with our full knowledge that we have many, many other options than the United States to build prosperity for all Canadians. We will chart a new path forward, because this is Canada and we decide what happens here.
Okay, let's have a look at some Canadians in their own words talking about why they voted for Carney.
I think who I voted for would be the best to take care of Trump, because Trump is, I'm sorry to say, an ass, and he shouldn't even be president of the United States. But because he is, we need a strong person so that we could stand strong.
I see. So that's the messaging, and that's the impact that messaging has had. We need our own attack dog to confront this external neighboring threat. Now, one of the big stories here is, how did Pierre Poilievre, lose this election after being so far ahead and looking like he was going to be Canada's version of Trump, a kind of nationalist politician? I feel like he was on Jordan Peterson a bunch and super articulate about Canada and a vision for Canada. But curiously, he chose, perhaps necessarily, to speak out against Trump's, I would say pseudo and somewhat sarcastic colonialist talk. Here's one of his posts. President Trump, stay out of our election. The only people who will decide the future of Canada are Canadians at the ballot box. Canada will always be proud, sovereign and independent. We will never be the 51st state. Today, Canadians can vote for change to strengthen our country, stand on our own 2 feet and stand up to America from a position of strength. But what does that mean even to be a Canadian? And what is your relationship? Here's some old left-wing rhetoric. The oppressed people of Germany and the oppressed people of the United Kingdom have more in common with one another than they do with the elite class in their own nation. This is socialist, left-wing discourse, i.e., workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. So, if you are a Canadian and your affiliation is with your nation, or if you're French, or if you're British, or Sri Lankan, or whatever you are, and you feel a sense of national pride, what is that national pride based on? Is it based on the ability of your population to stand up to external threats? Is it a connection to your land? What exactly are you deriving your sense of nationhood from? And if you have ultimately a globalist leader who will prioritize global relationships with bureaucracies such as the ones that I continually list, NATO, the UN, if you're in Europe, the EU, the IMF, global financial institutions and institutions of power, if your leader is ultimately puppeted by them, then what is your nationalism really about? For all of the many critiques leveled at Donald Trump, what seems to be true, let me know if you agree with this in the comments and chat, is that he does put America first. Or does he? Do you believe that Donald Trump is similarly owned by whatever interests are able to puppet American government and the American military-industrial complex in order to engage them in conflicts around the world? Do you think that Trump is owned in that way? Let me know what you think, guys. Here is Trump being asked about Pierre Poilievre, and Poilievre, even though he's a conservative, vocal anti-Trump rhetoric. The Post, we saw it in text form just now.
Going to make them more hostile to us and possibly
I'd rather deal with a liberal than a
for
conservative.
China, closer to Canada, and that would really put us in a bind.
The conservative that's running is stupidly no friend of mine. I don't know him, but he said negative things. So when he says negative things, I couldn't care less. I think it's easier to deal, actually, with a liberal.
Okay, and I suppose that makes sense, isn't it? Because you've got a natural enemy in a liberal. If you have a conservative politician who's deliberately antagonistic to Trump, then that puts Trump in a curious position. Here's a graph that demonstrates Poilievre's decline right when it mattered. Pierre Poilievre, says Nick Saw on X, blew a massive freaking lead as soon as he started shit-talking about Trump per Polymarket. The rest of the world should keep that in mind. So maybe, remember how we began this conversation, Trump's claim that he runs the country and the world. Does that seem legitimate and true? Not so much that Trump directly makes the decisions that determine the outcome of events in your country, if you're not watching this in the United States of America, but is the world formulating its positions as either in alignment with Trump or anti-Trump? To me, it seems pretty obvious that that's the case, that Canada, and in the form of Mark Carney's success, had positioned the campaign and its policies around Canadian sovereignty against the United States of America, a position that was legitimized by much of Trump's, in my view, comedic rhetoric. And indeed, this is the conversation and argument that may define the world for the next, 4 years, for presumably Trump is going to just do one term. It will be about American populism, America's attempt to retain financial and military power over the world as China continues to ascend and Russia makes extraordinary moves, as financial alternatives, both crypto and BRICS, emerge that could destabilize the dollar. What will happen? How will Trump's strongman approach and natural intuitive affinity with the population of America that will adore him no matter what influence global politics? It's not just going to be unilateral. Clearly, it's not going to be that every country in the world produces a Javier Milieu. Not every country in the world will bake and put forth its own Trump. Some will go in an antithetical and diametrically opposed direction, as its nearest neighbour and now rival, Canada, has just done. But that's just what I think. Why don't you let me know what you think in the comments and the chat.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to see more uncensored content where free speech can flourish, join our live stream. Click the link right here to watch the next video if you want to, or become a member of a growing movement. Download the Rumble app and you'll be informed every time we make a new piece of content. Stay free.